Tonight we'll be covering the origins of Anunnaki, the past, and their possible return. And without further ado is the expert on all things on Anunnaki, Eve2000 BC. Go ahead, Eve.
Well, I have a pretty open mind, and I am willing to ask or answer any questions. Is there somebody that would like to interject and ask me anything?
Describe what you know about the Anunnaki, their origins and the past, where supposedly we were slaves to them harvesting gold.
Yes, there's multiple Adam and Eve, and Iki came up with basically a clone to what we are now as humans. They started off as the black race, and they were an Adam and Eve there. They were slave creatures, but it wasn't really the Anunnaki's desire to enslave them in that way. It was Inki's desire to develop the perfect human, in his opinion, and make them more thought out than his original design. The Anunnaki have contacted us before, but it's not like they're going to give you a hair sample and ask you to Facebook together. It's been under the wraps, and there is Anunnaki, I believe, that are in the government right now as we speak. So it's not like they went away and they never came back. They come and go, different Anunnaki come and go, and then them just leaving and never coming back.
People say that Anunnaki were our creators. They injected their DNA into our form.
Say that again, Luke.
Some people say that the Anunnaki were our creators. They injected their DNA into our primitive form when we were first on the Earth. So are they our creators, or are they just alien species who have been using us for countless ages?
Well, that's just it. In the beginning, we were slave creatures to them. You know what I figured out is that I don't think the Anunnaki were the first to land. There was Shiti reptilians and more of a reptilian-looking race that were more lizardy-looking. There is a more ancient civilization than the Sumerians, but they were more primitive than the Sumerians. They were a black race in Africa. So when the Anunnaki came, the black people of that time were not like us humans now, and they definitely were laborer types, the blue collar, the ones that were the workers. Naturally, the Anunnaki observed this, and they followed in that footstep of making us slaves. But what I would see is genetic cloning. Every clone female or birth you is the way genetics on the Earth.
Where are the Anunnaki from?
You know, I've had some research on this because I find it very confusing, but I know Michael said Nibiru, and then he said how Nibiru was in the Orion Belt, but then Nibiru also moves around. So I even wonder if something happened to that planet and now there's just a mothership, because I don't know any planets that can just move around the Orion Belt and move around the planet here. It's It's a very huge planet from what I heard, and it's where he originally.
If the poster hung likable in the room has a question. Would we all be a bunch of unevolved creatures today without the Anunnaki?
That is a good question. I believe that we would have evolved eventually, but we wouldn't be as advanced as we are today. Consequently, there is other alternate worlds. And, there's no explaining this because I have a very layman's term and terms that I'm just beginning to learn about this stuff. But I do know there's a past, present, and future us. There's also alternate us, and there's alternate worlds. It's all this circular mind thing that I really have a hard time with because I'm a linear thinker. So, yeah, I believe that we would be like, I think, the 1950s, and we would have more, probably, morals, and there would be probably a lot less intellectual rebellion and rebellion of science and people that have just questioned it to the point where they figured things out. So 1950s, but with some primitive still thinking, is what I would think us humans would be like if the Anunnaki never came to birth us and take advantage of our DNA. Have them be the hosts, so to speak. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. We have a question from the room from Archangel. Archangel, please mic up.
Yeah, hi Eve. Thanks for sharing all this with us. I was curious if you know if the Anunnaki, since they combined, from what I understand of it, they combined their part of their genome that allowed them speech and intelligence with the primitive primates of the planet. They did that physically. Does that tie them to us karmically? In other words, are we kind of going through some of their unresolved issues, or are they not able to fully leave our situation because of that karmic tie, or if there is anything like that at all, or can they just take off and kind of leave it to go?
Eve, did you get that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mic up. Okay, so that's a very good question. And I believe that I do have a karma tie to Michael. But, other people have a karma tie to Michael as well. One person couldn't wrap their mind around the fact that he was Anunnaki. They wrapped their mind around he's a messenger from God, he's an angel. They could wrap their mind around all these other things. And I said, can you really just look at the fact that he might be Anunnaki too, and that he's all those things? You could still be a messenger of God. You could still be an angel to some people. To me, he was like a biological father because Inky favored his boys. And I know that Inky's favored humans on this planet as we speak, but he didn't favor his daughter. And he didn't favor women because he looked at women kind of in a sexist way, that we're basically here to create and be this thing that's on their arm. So yeah, definitely I believe that there's karma ties with different Anunnaki, not just Michael. Like I said, he's not just a messenger of God. He's not an angel, really, but I mean, to some people he can be. He's not just an Anunnaki. He's not just a guardian. They fit so many things. And to me, he was like a father. He's not an angel at all to me. To me, I look at him as commander of the Anunnaki, as in when there's a time of war, or when there needs to be a time of being a guardian to protect us humans. And there's so many other people that have not fell, that have cosmic and karmic ties. It's all circular, and in this balance of past, present, future, and alternate worlds moving together, and I can't really describe it as well as probably they could, because I'm a linear thinker. So, if that makes any kind of sense to you, I want you to know that yes, I believe that there's a lot of ties with different Anunnaki with humans here on this planet. Could Anunnaki souls be born into human bodies because of the karmic tie? I believe that yes, definitely, because I believe that Eve was Anunnaki, and there was actually a picture from, I think his name was Titanic, earlier in a thread about Lilith, and that wasn't a picture to me, in my opinion, my theory of Lilith. That was a picture of Eve. She had wings, and if you look, it's really kind of funny. The face in the statue that he put looks like my damn profile picture. And I thought this, but then look, identical to Eve, except Lilith was the clone. Lilith was never married to Adam, and Lilith was not an Anunnaki at all. So yes, definitely there's this big mesh of the Anunnaki and humans privilege, and I made that point in my thread as well.
I have a question. Now, are the Anunnaki things
yes,
of watchers?
Exactly, they are. Exactly. I believe that, like I said, there are many things. It's not just this, oh, hey, we're Anunnaki, hey. And I also believe that there's humans that are watchers. They die or they work for the government. They're able to astral project. And they have that kind of DNA that's not so blood type that not only the Anunnaki, so humans can as well. Does that make sense, Luke?
Makes sense. Now, tell me this, Eve. Where are the Anunnaki from? Are they from the 10th planet, Planet X? Are they from Tiamat? Or are they from the heavenly realm?
See, that's where you're asking me a question and confusing it with circular and linear. They're a circular thinker. I mean, the whole thing is circular. They're from Planet X. They're from Planet Nibiru. They came from many places in different alternate worlds. It's like something going on that's the past, present, future. And it could be a same world, but different alternate realities. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And Crowfax in the room has a question for you. He wishes to know if the Anunnaki are our gods, and if not, who are their gods?
Okay, so I got that thinking a little bit from different things. Because Michael said that our human God is different than their God. And the Anunnaki wish to have us follow our leaders, our people in history. They want us to have some sort of religion and have some sort of a God. And he is human. But then they have not so human traits. When I was telling you about different bloodlines, and some people don't have the same DNA as other people. They have like a slight blood type that's different from the norm. They also carry some sort of special abilities. So they are human, very human, but they also have some Anunnaki traits that are a little bit more relevant in their abilities than other humans might have. So I have that understanding, and I also have to interject all these questions and tell you about Ken Klein. He talks about the cherubim and the cherubs. If you have any kind of a DVD player, or you could type on the computer and look him up, Ken Klein is excellent to describe to you about the cherubs and how they did the genetic design and the DNA of the Anunnaki. They are the celestial beings, the higher powers to the Anunnaki. Does that make sense? I know, I have a hick accent.
Do they have any special powers or abilities that you know of, Eve?
Oh, absolutely. Astral projection is a trip to me because I can hear people when they astral project, but I'm not so good at it. And then there's other people. I mean, I was watching this movie, and these kids were trying to get into Area 51. They had no idea. They were taking these pills so they could get past the sensors and their heat sensors out in the desert. But it was so surreal to watch this because they didn't even think, oh, there might be astral projectors. There might be these guards that we can't see at all. Now, to somebody like me, I can hear them, but I can't see them. And then there's government people. They can see people. They can astral project. They have this whole different way of looking at life, and they have these abilities of mind reading, healing. They just can really, go through the matrix, basically, in my opinion, and slip through different alternate worlds with clarity and easy to understand, seeing and hearing things and using all their perceptions. Does that make sense?
I have a question
Hello?
from Scarlett in the room. What is their purpose within our government, if they have one?
Well, there's something interesting. I forget who said this the other day that really made sense to me, but the real government wasn't in Washington, D.C., it's in London. And the real, the CIA, the juice, the information people, that's where it's gathered. And along with the Watchers, along with just being able to spy on everything and anyone, and being able to get a hold of all the information that they want to know about each and every single one of you, that's how they fit in the government. They tie it with other humans that have similar abilities or half the abilities that they could, and they're basically like, there's different sectors. That's how I understand it to be. There's guardians, there's watchers. There's so many things to the government that people just aren't told about, and I think they do that for our security. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. We have a question. Sorry about that, Eve. We have a question in the room from Silence. Do you know about the Order of the Galzu?
I didn't. You know what? Maybe you can shoot me a link in my thread. I made that thread because I haven't read every damn book you can think of. But if you can shoot me a link to him or to that information in my thread, here, I'll even give you my link. Please do, and I'll look at it. I would love to hear your comments about it. If you could mic up, do you want to enlighten us and let us know your information about it?
It's pretty much silent, so he just types all the time. But my question for you is something I was curious about for the longest time. How did you first meet Michael the Archangel, and why did he come to you?
I explained it in my thread too, and nobody in the planet has believed me so far. So you're not the only one, and I'm not expecting anybody to believe it here. But just like the movie Michael, he wore a black suit. He had this coat caped over his shoulders, and he was in the Las Vegas airport. And people say bullshit to that because if they have wings, they could fly anywhere. They can astral project. But you know what? If Michael came that way in the beginning, before I even knew any of this stuff, I would have thought I was hallucinating. So I can see easily why people would show up at an airport or maybe somewhere, a public area, to somebody that was just skeptical. I didn't even have an idea to pick up these books. They needed to show up in the real deal way, skin, bone, flesh, person to person, and walk up to you and let you know they have wings attached to their back. It was at the Las Vegas airport. Said it in my thread, and I've been saying that for 11 years now. But that's why they would do that, I would imagine.
What's the purpose of talking
to you?
I mean, there's billions of people on the planet. Why are you so special? That's my question.
Oh, I'm not special at all. I believe that I had a past life, and 4,000 years ago, in 2000 BC, in Eridu, I was Eve. And Michael was like a father figure to me to make up for what Inky wasn't to me. And in this life, people, just like me, have been, the first they died in the first form existence as an Anunnaki or whatever extraterrestrial breed they died. They were killed, mostly because they died too young compared to their DNA. But they know they died, and they went somewhere else, and then they came back to this planet reborn as a baby, or whatever damn ET races they came from. They came back and they resemble humans now. So why he came to me was, it was Inky's idea, and now he's a different person. He died and he knows he came back. He works in the government, and he works with people that are test subjects in the government. That is his job. Inky was passionate about science. He wanted Michael to have me take this pill, and they made me take it. It was Inky commanding Michael to do this, and they wanted me to take this pill. So Inky's son, who is also, I know that Adam died, I know that Adam went somewhere else, and I know that Adam came back as Inky's son. They wanted him to think that I was crazy and I had all these things going on, to where his son would stay away from me. His son is in the government, and he had a fear that if we got back together, that he would get hurt, and he did not want his son to get hurt. So it was Inky's idea for me to remember everything, to turn my pineal gland on, and it doesn't just work that way. It took a year for that pill to even kick in, and that is the original intent to why. And I can't say his government name. I know you guys are going to ask. I've said his name before in different threads. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to simply just say it was Inky. I know he died. He's a government guy now, and that was his intent, for me to know all these things, to separate me and Adam. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, Eve, it does. Question for you now. There's reports of the Anunnaki in the past enslaving us for gold. What is the purpose of us being enslaved for gold? Why do they need gold?
Gold dust. There's many answers that I got to that. And you know what? To be honest with you, I remember Michael talking about that. That's one of the things I really can't remember about him talking about. And there was something about gold dust to them, a totally different use than how, if anybody can enlighten us about what they think. Pineal gland will drip when activated, no joke. Okay. It's funny. So going back to the gold dust, there was something about that. I remember him talking about that. I was so devastated with all the other things he said. I really haven't wrapped my mind about that, because I wasn't a slave. I was kind of a slave. I was oppressed, but not like a person that had to go and dig for and mine for gold. So I didn't wrap my mind around that as far as reading. And again, you could go to my thread. I would love to read that stuff. So definitely do. Here's my thread again. Let me read what you know and what you think about it. And I would gladly read your books. and listen to your opinions.
Archelage has a question from the room. Go ahead, Archelage.
Yeah, just interested in your perspective of kind of the evolution of the Anunnaki's perspective towards humans. I mean, we were first their science experiment, and then they're slaves, and then one faction wants to see us kind of rise as an intelligent species, and here we are kind of overrunning the world in a lot of ways, and kind of our civilized ignorance, or uncivilized. My question is, what is your knowledge of their civilization's agenda, or their how do they want to interact or do not want to interact with the human race? Kind of what is their plan? Do they they want to wipe us out again, or like in the proverbial flood situation, or potentially other things? What's your perspective on that?
Well, I got lost with your. It sounds like a bunch of different questions. Okay, so your original idea, I remember you asking, was it's this whole. Did we come from a monkey and evolve, or did we just get genetically inseminated and people start birthing out half Anunnaki, half humans? And this is a good answer. So I want everybody in this room to hear it close. Are you ready? The answer is both. It both happened. I mean, there was such a big boom about other people, other species inseminating, other people mating. Some were just cloning. I mean, it's both. And it totally made sense to me when Michael said that. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Eve. But my specific question was kind of what is their current agenda towards the human race, if you know? Like, are they in like a stance of education? Are they trying to help conscientiously evolve the human race, or just is it kind of like a farming operation, or a slash and burn where they raise as much energy and capital as they can and then just plow the field under?
Man, you ask these questions that are so circular. I love it because it makes my mind go about a bunch of different agendas that they have for us. Let me interject about one thought that you made me think, that are they still breeding us? Are they still doing this? I shouldn't even be talking about this because I wasn't told this, but have you ever thought about stem cells and cloning, and that there is actual Anunnaki purebred clones? I mean, there's so many agendas in the government that they have for us. Obviously, we are kind of guinea pigs to some, but then there's other people that are Anunnaki that we're also family to them. They endear us. They want us to have different jobs and go off somewhere else and do something else. All those agendas. And I'm not trying to be an asshole. I just think you ask circular questions, and it's not for a linear mind to understand. And a lot of people think in a linear way. So I have to answer you in a circular way, because that's what your questioning was about. It's a circular question. And the answer is all those agendas, that's what they have for us. Because there's so many people on the planet, and there's so many different extraterrestrial races. So, hey, I gotta tell you, it's all of the above.
I have a good question for you. What are their plans for us, the Anunnaki? What does our future hold?
See, now that's a linear question. And then my mind goes about, well, they have different things for me. They have different things for you. You're talking about when was this big ship came, and it had this Um, Jason was hit Yuke in the sky, but it were, and they wanted us to not be anymore. Now this chat is supposed to be Anunnaki, so I doubt seriously that that was the Anunnaki race up in that ship. But it could be a race of different extraterrestrials that wanted to come, and because their ship was so big, so huge, it basically, we died instantly, or we had to go underground. And that was just my vision. Now, I could be wrong, so that's just my theory and my opinion how their agenda is going to end for us. But as far as agenda, there's so many different extraterrestrials that all have different agendas. And there's so many people, so we all have different roles. We all have a different agenda, a different job, an ending that's going to happen to us. But as far as our human life, that's what I seen in my vision, and that sucker was huge. It took my air instantly. So, does that answer your question at least a little?
Yes, it does, and I thank you for that. Now it's time to bring the woo, folks. As you all know, I bring the woo, and time for a woo question. Now, as you know, Eve, there was a Roswell craft in 1947. Was that craft of the Anunnaki?
No, I think that was Gray's. In my opinion, you're going to ask me my opinion about that. There was even a documentary about that. Little sucker had big eyes and skinny legs. I teased my boyfriend because his legs are so skinny that I said they look like Grays. And that looked like a Gray in that documentary. They had a live looking extraterrestrial right there in the documentary. And I don't know. That didn't look Anunnaki to me. So that race is called the Greys, and I don't know anything about that. I heard that if you read up on David Icke, you could get more of a concept of the Greys. But that's just one of the reptilian extraterrestrial races. Yeah.
Now, do you agree with the same views as Zachariah Sitchin on the Anunnaki and the Planet X theory, or do you differ from that?
Well, that's just it, Luke. I was saying that there's alternate worlds. I think that Planet X is Nibiru, and that's my opinion, because in my mind, I don't just see one way. I see this circular motion of past, present, future. We have alternate. It just makes sense to me that Nibiru is an alternate place.
Now, there used to be a planet between Jupiter. I'm saying that was the home world of Anunnaki, or there was a war involved with a race on that planet that destroyed it. How much do you know about that theory about the planet Tiamat, and what did the Anunnaki have to do with it?
Well, like I said, they work in the government. To my understanding, wasn't there a planet recently that now they claim it to be a star? I think people were starting to see that there was life on that. And then what's up with the Mars thing with the flatulent gas? That was another common article that came out from NASA, and maybe that was a detour, because I even got confused thinking there's life on Mars. I went to this planetarium in Vegas, and it was funny. It reminds me of South Park, because the people there, they stutter and they look kind of goofy, man, and they have these perfect scopes that can basically see human life, but they completely, all the speakers that spoke to us completely deny the fact that there's extraterrestrial life force out there, and they don't see nothing, man, but they're stuttering all over the place, and I'm asking the right questions, but I think that people with their scopes actually found out that there's life, And so they're deterring you. That's what I think. They deter you with disinformation. And that's all I'm going to say about that because it's so opinion-based. I could go into so many different authors. I don't know any right now at the top of my head because I'm a little nervous speaking. But that's my opinion to your answer. No, I'm not drinking. I gave that up.
Hi, this is Puss in Boots. I had a question, kind of. It's not exactly on the Anunnaki, but I had wondered what your thoughts were on Enki and Enlil. I came across something I had seen. They had dug up a Christ statue from centuries ago. And it was from a certain church, and it leaned to the left. And I seen another one that leaned to the right. And I came across this theory that one church would have the left facing and one would have the right facing. And when I came across the two statues of Enki and Enlil, I noticed that in each of the depictions, they only faced a certain way. I was just wondering if you had come across anything like that and you had formed your own hypothesis or whatever on that.
Well, because that was a circular question too. It almost makes me think in all these different answers for you. To my comprehension, my opinion, my theory about Enki and Enlil is they both think they were God. The problem is they're not. And then as far as the Christ-like figure, this is my theory and opinion, so if anybody's religious, please forgive me. I certainly am not stepping on your religion, but Christ was not Jesus. Christ was another Anunnaki in a bloodline. That was Joshua, and then the first Christ was Adam. So if you're looking for who really Christ is to us, it's Adam. He was my, but here on earth, that's my, oh, Jacob's my, wait, descendants of Mary are also Anunnaki. Okay, here we go. This is some meat and bone. This is all theory. You will get some of these juicy bits in Zechariah's translations. So this is all theory-based. Don't think you have to think like this. Let me tell you about Enki and Enlil. So they both struggled for, they wanted to be God. And, oh man, all your questions are throwing me off. They look totally different. Enlil looked like Anu, which is black hair and olive skin. And Enki had pale skin and blue eyes. Enlil had blue eyes, black hair, olive skin. And they both did things that wanted us humans to think that they were God. Okay, so and it was Michael and Lil and Inky that brought me to the same teacher. And because he met me in the evening, he called me Eve. Adam named me. So I was all in Anunnaki. I don't think I am Anunnaki now, man. I got some DNA that's trippy. I battle with my weight. I'm not the best astral projector. I can hear astral projectors. I'm not the best at mind reading, but I can. I have visions, but I don't think I'm the sharpest shed. I don't think just because they grasp the bad optics, people are so good in the government. They could take you and look like the damn exorcist that came to the house, and I'm not that good, not even on my best day. So, no, I'm not Anunnaki in this life. I was back then, though, and I had all those abilities back then in 2000 BC. But going back to that, so, when I was born, I was hatched. Anunnaki, they get hatched. There is a mother. Her name was Ninhursig, and she was Enlil's sister. So, yes, I was Anunnaki, and my biological father was Inky. So I had olive skin in resemblance to my mother, and I had wings in resemblance to Inky and Ninhursig. But Adam didn't have wings, and I was saying this in my thread that some have wings, some don't. Some have this shape, some don't have that shape. Some are giants, some were black. They all had different colors. So going back to the Inky and the Lil thing and religion, there's so many to that story, so many people that swim in my head. It's impossible I would think for anybody in religion to think there was one white Adam and one white Eve, and now all these people are here, and then boom, white Adam and Eve just popped us all out. So again, that's a circular question. It confuses the hell out of everybody, and that's my answer to you. That's my theory. So please do ask me more about that, because I do know a lot about that in my own opinion and theories.
Is there a hybrid race between humans and Anunnaki, and is it called the Nephilim, or is it called something different?
A higher race, like
a
as
hybrid
in now?
race, like a combination of human and Anunnaki DNA, creating a different race. And hybrid. Is there a hybrid race between human beings and Anunnaki?
You know, I hate throwing that word around because there's so much disinformation about that. But, you know, if you go back to the Lilith myths, and Titanic did this, there was a Lilith myth that Lilith went off into the desert, and Lilith mated with the demons of the land. And she birthed children from these demons. I'm going to tell you right now that wasn't Lilith. And they aren't demons. They were called Shiti reptilians. They don't even exist anymore. They were a prehistoric reptilian breed, and Eve did have reptilian / Anunnaki kids like that. So your Nephilim question is pretty interesting. I believe that there's a lot of people out there that have a DNA that other people can't understand. And I think it's a big conspiracy. I think it's a big cover-up. If you go to some doctors and you get your blood tested, and it's not the average blood that everybody else has, you're going to floor the doctors. So I do believe that it's not so much Nephilim. I just believe that there's bloodlines. And when you follow that bloodline, your mom and dad, the bloodline of Cain, the bloodline of the Shiti that don't even exist anymore, now you might have reptilian DNA. I believe there's so many different extraterrestrials out there that, yes, Luke, of course, that those people are out there. I don't like to call it the Nephilim because people abuse that word too much. I like to call it, they follow a bloodline, And that's what the Nephilim is to me. It's not the word Nephilim because people disinfo the shit out of that word. It's called bloodline. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Archaeology has a question in the room. Did the Anunnaki share DNA with the reptilians?
Well, like I said, I believe it is a planet X question, sir. I'm from the sea. And then Enlil had a mother that was Anunnaki and was Anu's biological sister. So, I mean, to say that we don't share any kind of a mesh here on the planet, that's ridiculous. Of course we do. Of course we are meshed with other extraterrestrials now.
How do the fallen angels fit in all this? You know, you have the Anunnaki, then you have the good angels, and then you have the devil and his angels, the fallen angels.
See,
where do you fit in this with their timeline with the Anunnaki?
Well, the timeline, okay, so the big rebellion started, just had it. He wanted to be God. He wanted other people to know he was God, and he started abusing his power to the point where he was killing magical creatures. He was going off and doing things that really were upsetting the other Anunnaki. He was abusing his power. So that's, in my opinion, this is my theory. Other people are going to judge it. Fine, you don't have to think like I do. But this is when Enlil became Lucifer. And he was bound to the alternate worlds down below. I call it the, there's another world, the descendant world. That's where he went to the descendant world, where there's other alternate worlds. And there is gates. There's 8 gates to hell. I believe in that. That goes along with Dante's book. But going back to your question about hell and Satan and all that, that's how Lucifer became Lucifer. Is he was once Enlil, and Enlil started abusing his power, thinking he's way better than everybody else, and he started killing off magical creatures and doing things that upset the balance of how the Anunnaki wanted their idea of us people to go. So that's when there was this whole separation there of Enlil becoming Lucifer, and that's very real. He really was Lucifer to me, and from what I've read, and from what I talked to Michael about, and what I've talked to even other government people about, that's how Lucifer started, and that separation there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, you talk about, you know, you were being hatched. Is that like an egg then, or is it something different you're talking about?
Literal egg. I was hatched as an Anunnaki. And I get it. You're trying to think, is that a reptilian thing? I think that there's different races. And maybe Anunnaki were reptilian too. But we looked human. We just had different shapes and sizes. And then there was some magical type Anunnaki looking things, and I've noticed that in the Sumerian artifacts and in clay carvings that there was different Anunnaki. So yeah, it's very real that we could have been reptilian too. I see where you're going with that, and to my answer to you is very well we could be reptilians. Anunnaki could have been reptilians, but to my answer also, there's also other extraterrestrial names and breeds. So there's a bunch of different things to speculate what we were and where we came from. What did Aha say now?
About 7 minutes before the end of the show. Anything you wish to add about the Anunnaki? Anything you wish to talk about? Go ahead.
Me? What I want to say about the Anunnaki? I don't know. I hate this babbling thing. I'm not so comfortable, but you have your questions and I'll answer them for sure. And I really wish other people can mic up and I wouldn't be the only one on the spot. But I hope that you have at least some sort of a idea about how I think and my theories. And I want you to know that whatever you say about me or whatever your theories are, I'll certainly respect yours too.
Now, supposedly, some people believe that the Anunnaki are on X, which is also 10 planets, has an orbit about, comes along every so often, like 3,000 years. It's in every time that, which I call dark star. It wrecks a great flood, the dinosaurs of mankind in the future. Now, Sitchin talked about this too, a little bit. Do you have the same belief system as him when it comes to the dark star coming along every 5,000 years or so and causing havoc on Earth?
You know, Luke, this goes back because that's a very circular question coming from you. And you know, to my understanding, I'm just going to give you a circular answer. And I'll repeat this again, that I think that the dark star, the planet X, the Nibiru, it's all the same planet. It's all the same. It's just alternate realities and alternate conclusions to what are going to happen to us. Because what's going to happen to you might not necessarily happen to your alternate self. So I really need you to open up your mind with that circular question that you just asked and just imagine alternate realities, an alternate you, multiple past, present, and future yous, all simultaneously doing their own thing right now and all living on different planets and some even alternate realities in this one. And they're all the same. They're all the same to me.
Thank you for the evening. It was an interesting show, and I appreciate your input on the Anunnaki, and we'll have you back again. Thank you for tuning in, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a fun show, and we'll see you next time. You listen to Propaganda Radio in the LOP chat room.